Sarah Mitchell had been dismissed from military training twice, labeled as inadequate by every instructor who evaluated her. But no one knew she trained in secret every night, that each failure only made her stronger. When enemy forces targeted her unit, they would discover that the woman they underestimated had become the world's deadliest sniper. Because sometimes the limits others set for you become the very boundaries you're meant to shatter. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this story about perseverance, hidden potential, and proving everyone wrong, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe that failure is often just preparation for extraordinary success, hit that subscribe button, because Sarah's journey will show you that sometimes the most powerful weapons are forged in the fires of rejection. But first, you need to understand how a woman who couldn't pass basic marksmanship became a legend that enemy forces would learn to fear. Fort Bradley's sniper school was notorious for its 90% failure rate. The program broke soldiers who thought they were tough, sent home men who'd served multiple combat tours, and had never graduated a single woman in its 15-year history. The instructors wore their cruelty like badges of honor, believing that only through complete psychological destruction could they forge the perfect killing machine. Sarah Mitchell arrived at Fort Bradley on a gray October morning, carrying a duffel bag and determination that had already been tested twice. At 26, she was older than most recruits, having spent 4 years in regular infantry before applying for specialized training. Her previous attempts at advanced military schools had ended in failure. Demolitions training that labeled her too hesitant, airborne school that called her mentally weak. But something about precision shooting called to her with an intensity she couldn't explain. Master Sergeant Rick Coleman ran the program with military precision and personal sadism. He'd built his reputation on breaking the weak and molding the strong, never questioning whether his methods actually produced better snipers or just more compliant soldiers. When Sarah's paperwork crossed his desk, he saw another opportunity to demonstrate the program's selectivity. "Mitchell," he announced on her first day, reading from his clipboard like he was delivering a death sentence. 2 previous failures in military training programs, marginal fitness scores, no prior precision shooting experience. What makes you think you belong here? Sarah stood at attention, knowing that any response would be used against her. Coleman continued his psychological assault for the benefit of the other recruits. "This program has standards, Mitchell. We don't lower the bar for anyone, especially not for diversity quotients. You'll wash out inside a week." The other recruits, all male, all eager to distance themselves from what they already saw as dead weight, avoided eye contact with Sarah. She'd seen this dynamic before, the group bonding through shared exclusion of the designated outsider. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos observed the exchange with professional interest. Santos was the program's only female instructor, a former Marine sniper with 3 confirmed kills in Afghanistan. She recognized the setup immediately. Coleman was establishing Sarah as the target that would unite the male recruits while providing himself with an easy prediction to fulfill. The first week confirmed everyone's expectations. Sarah's shooting was erratic, her stalking clumsy, her camouflage techniques obvious to trained observers. During practical exercises, she consistently ranked last, providing Coleman with daily opportunities to publicly dissect her failures. "Mitchell's grouping looks like she's throwing rocks," Coleman announced after reviewing her targets. "Maybe she should transfer to logistics where accuracy doesn't matter." The other recruits laughed on cue, grateful that the sergeant's attention was focused elsewhere. But Santos noticed something others missed. Sarah's failures weren't random. Each mistake showed learning. Each error was different from the previous one. She was systematically working through problems rather than repeating them. More interestingly, Sarah showed up at the range every evening after official training ended, using her personal ammunition allowance to practice fundamentals that others had mastered years earlier. Week 3 brought Sarah's first major humiliation. During a timed shooting exercise, she missed 7 out of 10 targets at 300 yards, a distance considered basic proficiency for infantry soldiers. Coleman seized the moment for maximum psychological impact. "Mitchell, you just endangered 7 hypothetical soldiers," he announced loudly enough for nearby training companies to hear. Your shooting is so bad it's dangerous to your own side. Pack your gear. You're done." Sarah felt the familiar weight of failure settling on her shoulders, but something was different this time. The disappointment was still there, but underneath it was something harder: analysis. She'd been studying her misses, understanding wind effects, learning to read environmental conditions that weren't covered in basic training manuals. "Sergeant," she said, her voice steady despite the public humiliation, "I request remedial training. I know I can improve." Coleman's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Mitchell, I've been doing this for 12 years. Some people don't have what it takes. Cut your losses and find something you're actually good at." That evening, as Sarah packed her equipment, Staff Sergeant Santos approached her quarters. "Walk with me," Santos said, leading Sarah away from the barracks to a secluded training area. "I've been watching you," Santos continued once they were alone. "Your fundamentals are improving faster than any recruit I've seen. Your problem isn't ability, it's confidence." Sarah looked up sharply. She'd expected another lecture about acceptance and moving on. "Coleman's trying to break you psychologically," Santos explained. "It's his method. Sometimes it works, sometimes it just destroys good soldiers. But you're not broken yet, which tells me something important." Santos pulled out a civilian hunting rifle, well-maintained but unremarkable. "This belonged to my grandfather. He taught me to shoot when I was 8 years old. Not military precision, just fundamentals. Clean technique, steady breathing, natural point of aim." She handed the rifle to Sarah. "You've got 2 weeks of terminal leave before you're officially out. Use them wisely. What happened during those 2 weeks would remain classified for the next 8 years. Santos had arranged for Sarah to train at a remote civilian range with instructors who focused on precision rather than psychology. Without the constant pressure of evaluation and humiliation, Sarah's natural ability began to emerge. Her instructors were former military snipers who had transitioned to civilian careers, men who understood that the best shooters weren't always the ones who survived military training programs. They worked with Sarah on advanced techniques that Fort Bradley hadn't covered: reading atmospheric conditions, understanding bullet ballistics at extreme ranges, developing the mental discipline required for precision shooting under stress. Sarah discovered that her previous failures had actually been advantages. Her late start meant she hadn't developed bad habits that needed to be unlearned. Her analytical approach to each mistake had given her deeper understanding of shooting fundamentals than rote memorization could provide. Most importantly, her experience with failure had developed mental resilience that many successful recruits lacked. When her 2 weeks ended, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of returning to regular military service, she requested discharge and disappeared from official military records. But disappearing from the military didn't mean disappearing from conflict zones. Private military contractors were always looking for specialists willing to work in dangerous areas for substantial pay. Sarah's combination of military training and advanced marksmanship skills made her valuable to companies that asked fewer questions about formal credentials. Her first contract was providing overwatch security for humanitarian missions in Somalia. The work was supposed to be routine: escort duty for aid workers, deterrent presence rather than active combat. But Somalia had its own ideas about routine. The attack came without warning on Sarah's 3rd week in country. Hostile forces had identified the aid convoy's route and planned a coordinated ambush designed to capture valuable hostages. Sarah's position on a ridge 800 meters away was supposed to be observation only, but when automatic weapons fire erupted from 3 different positions, observation became engagement. What happened next would be studied in military academies for years afterward. Sarah engaged 12 hostile combatants across multiple positions with 12 precisely placed shots. Each engagement was at a different range and angle, requiring instant recalculation of environmental factors. The entire firefight lasted less than 4 minutes, and when it ended, the convoy was safe and the attack had been completely neutralized. The other security contractors, all former Special Forces operators, were stunned by the clinical precision of Sarah's shooting. None of them had ever seen anything like it. Word of the engagement spread through contractor networks with the speed of legend. Within months, Sarah was receiving offers from the most exclusive private military companies, organizations that normally recruited only from elite military units. Her reputation grew with each successful mission. The woman who had failed military sniper school twice was becoming the most sought-after precision shooter in the private sector. But Sarah remained careful about her identity, using only her first name and avoiding official records that could connect her current reputation to her military failures. She became known simply as Sarah in contractor circles, a ghost-like figure who appeared for high-risk missions and disappeared afterward. 5 years of contract work had made Sarah wealthy and legendary in equal measure. Her techniques were studied by military instructors who didn't know they were analyzing the work of someone their system had rejected. Her confirmed kill count exceeded that of many officially recognized snipers, but her achievements remained in the shadows of classified operations. The confrontation that would finally reveal her true abilities came during a contract in Eastern Europe. A terrorist organization had targeted an international peace conference, planning a coordinated attack that would eliminate multiple world leaders simultaneously. Sarah was part of a multinational security team tasked with preventing the attack, but intelligence failures had left them exposed and outnumbered. When the attack began, Sarah found herself in a position that would define her legacy. From her overwatch position, she could see friendly forces pinned down by enemy fire from multiple positions. The tactical situation was desperate. Without immediate intervention, the security team would be overrun and the peace conference would become a massacre. Sarah made 17 precision shots in 22 minutes, engaging targets at ranges from 400 to 1,200 meters while under constant counter-sniper fire. Each shot eliminated a specific threat, systematically dismantling the terrorist attack with surgical precision. Her shooting was so accurate that friendly forces initially thought they were receiving support from an entire sniper team. The engagement ended with the terrorist attack completely neutralized and 0 casualties among the protected delegates. Sarah's performance was so extraordinary that it triggered official investigations into who had provided the decisive shooting support. But by the time security services began their inquiries, Sarah had vanished once again, leaving behind only evidence of shooting skills that defied conventional military training. The official report classified the incident as intervention by an unknown precision shooter of exceptional ability, but copies of Sarah's tactical performance circulated through special operations communities worldwide. Master Sergeant Coleman, now nearing retirement at Fort Bradley, received an unofficial briefing about the Eastern Europe incident as part of a program analysis review. The shooting patterns and techniques described in the report seemed familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd encountered similar analytical approaches to precision marksmanship. Staff Sergeant Santos, who had since been promoted to the Pentagon's Training Development Division, immediately recognized the signatures of advanced techniques she'd seen only once before. She began a quiet investigation through contractor networks, using personal contacts to trace the identity of the legendary Sarah, who had become a whispered name among elite security operators. The truth, when Santos finally confirmed it, forced her to confront everything she thought she knew about military training effectiveness. The woman who had been dismissed from Fort Bradley's sniper program had become the most accomplished precision shooter of her generation, developing skills that exceeded anything the official military system had produced. Santos faced a difficult choice: expose the failures of military training programs by revealing Sarah's true identity, or protect Sarah's operational security by keeping the secret. She chose a middle path, using Sarah's story as an anonymous case study in training reform proposals, arguing that military programs needed to recognize different learning styles and development timelines. But the story was too extraordinary to remain completely hidden. Leaked details of the Eastern Europe incident, combined with growing legends about the mysterious contractor known as Sarah, eventually reached journalists who specialized in military affairs. The investigation that followed would reveal not just Sarah's identity, but fundamental flaws in how military institutions evaluated and developed talent. 8 years after being dismissed from Fort Bradley, Sarah Mitchell's story became a catalyst for comprehensive reform of military training programs. Her journey from failure to legend proved that traditional evaluation methods often missed exceptional potential, and that the most dangerous enemies of excellence were the systems designed to identify it. The woman who couldn't pass basic military training had redefined what was possible in precision marksmanship, but more importantly, she had demonstrated that human potential often exceeded the boundaries others tried to impose upon it. Have you ever been told you weren't good enough at something only to prove everyone wrong later? Share your story in the comments and tell us which city you're watching from. At Hidden Legends, we believe that failure is often just preparation for extraordinary success. Subscribe for more stories that prove limits are meant to be shattered. Remember, the people who dismiss your potential today might be studying your achievements tomorrow.